Yes, just arrived in Liverpool. I was going to have a day of rest today, but I woke up at 7:30 and I thought, yeah, why not? I've never been to the museums on the riverfront, so I thought I'd have a look. Plus I've got Hepcat Harley stickers to stick in toilets. This isn't that old. I think it were built in about 1880 something. And all these old buildings were black. They've all been cleaned up since the 1950s. They're all black back then because of all the soot. I like the architecture in Liverpool, but you can see all the gaps, and you know why there's gaps. Modern buildings and Victorian ones like this, because the Luftwaffe hammered this area with the bombs. It was decimated during World War II. I think it was May 1941 when you targeted Liverpool over a month. Bombs every night. Yes, the Beatles sat in that bench. In about 1960 with Pete Best. He sat in that very bench. Oh, music's coming on. I'll have to avoid a copyright strike by knocking it off. Yes, Matthew Street. Just been in the grapes there where the Beatles used to drink, because the cavern. This is the original entrance, all altered now of course. This is all built in 1984. But this is where the original entrance was. And in 1973 the cavern was filled in. All the warehouses above were demolished. The cavern was filled in. It kept going bust. And it was filled in because the council wanted to build a ventilation shaft for the underground railway which goes under the river. And despite appeals and sit-in protests, it was demolished, filled in, and the actual ventilation shaft project never materialised, so a load of bloody cobblers. And then the new cavern was built in the early 80s. Close to the original apparently, but you can see how they've cashed in on everything. Cavern pub, Cavern club, Cavern restaurant, Turtle Bay. That's what all the warehouses would have looked like originally. Liverpool Beatles Museum, ran by Pete Best and his brother, the original drummer for 2 years. But King John, what's King John meant to be? I've not been in there. I'm going to take it easy with the beer today.
That pump called the grapes, they are inside. Oh, really? Is the sandwich shop?
Yeah.
I thought you.
Hey, we're talking here.
Sergeant Pepper bar. Oh, there's the cavern, I've gone past it. The new cavern, I'm not going down, there's about maybe 50 steps. Yes, the reason I've stopped here, yes, postcards. I've got, I've got pictures. I've not got a lot of Beatles or Liverpool postcards at home. Just lots of old pictures, and this spot here, Derby Square and Castle Street, where the town hall is. Some nice old pictures of this, and this entire area. I mean, that survived. But all this was just blitzed by the Luftwaffe. And there's a picture of just this statue unscathed, with everything else blitzed. Although, like I said, these old buildings survived. They were blitzed. They survived. So he got hammered during the war, as you might expect, because we're near the seafront. All the docks got blitzed, you know. I think I've filmed from here before when the camera was bleeping, but this is a nice view because the other perspective from the riverfront is spoiled by the concrete blocks. There's a horrible thing here, another big black block there. The museum is there, can you see, sticking out. But all these are original buildings from Victorian times, and this was the office of the White Star Line. And when the Titanic sank, all the relatives came here for information. And you know what the White Star Line did? If you want the bodies repatriating back to Liverpool, you have to pay £100 each. And in 1912 that were a bloody fortune. So that's why a lot of the bodies are buried in America. It's in Newfoundland where a lot of them are buried. So the White Star Line offices, and it's now a hotel with a Titanic theme, as you'd expect. We're on the green to go. Oh, bloody hell. Steps. Where's the entrance? Where is the entrance? Oh, we've got the strike, 1:45. They say that them clock faces are bigger than Big Ben's. So, it's funny that, isn't it? Where's the end? It must be on the other side. But anyway, there we are. Stripey building is the White Star Line's office. I think it closed down in the 1930s. They say a lot of buildings around here have got shrapnel damage from the bombs. I was looking for some on my last visit, but I couldn't find any. Right, museum. Seagull on top of King George's head. Or is it Edward? Sorry, Edward the 7th. Can you hear me? A bit windy. I come down this way for a better view of the Liver building. I've got a picture before they built this. It was built in 1907, so this is relatively new. But there's a big cruise ship in. That was on Twitter. There's a couple of people that take professional pictures, and they said I forgot what it's called now, cruise liner. Look at the size of that. Probably bigger than the Titanic was. Oh, the seagull's gone. I've got a picture of a worker sat on the back of that cormorant to give you a perspective of the size of them. He's doing maintenance work on it. I come away from that music in case it gets a copyright warning. Ridiculous, isn't it? You have to delete all your bloody sound. Ferry across the Mersey. So I got a bit closer. A tour guide said there's a reason that George is speaking. And he said, come on one of my tours and I'll tell you. So what's George saying to Paul? And why is he carrying a cine camera? They're quite good likenesses though, aren't they? I've seen some rubbish statues in my time, but these are pretty good. Acorns in John's hand. An Indian script on George's belt. Closer view of the cruise ship. Enormous, that, isn't it? That photographer actually got on board and was taking pictures from that rear viewing deck at the top there of all these buildings. So how did he get on board? This is a memorial to all the crews of the heroes of the Marine Engine Room Memorial. That's all the ships that were sank during World War I and II. In fact, when they sank the Lusitania, U-boats torpedoed the Lusitania, and there were lots of Americans on board. And that's why the Americans joined World War I, they say. But there's controversy about that because it exploded. They said it was meant to be neutral, but it was actually an ammo ship full of ammunition, you know, being sent from America to the British Armed Forces. Therefore it was a legitimate target, according to the Germans. And the Germans actually put a warning in the New York Times saying, do not consider using the cruise ships because they will be torpedoed by other U-boats. And they did do. The propeller from the Lusitania is on the Albert Dock. This is actually a memorial to the crew of the RMS Titanic. 244 engine room staff, and there's the stripy White Star Line building. Can you see White Star Line? There's a reason that's not very loud. And the reason is Big Ben down London has got a huge bell, whereas that is not bells, it's little like tuning forks that are amplified. Believe it or not, I read about it. A series of little things, ping ping, and it's amplified, I'm not sure how. Seeing as it was built in 1907, I mean, they didn't have speakers back then, did they? I don't think. Anyway, museum, it's 2 o'clock, time's getting on. Yes, that's a colourful Mersey ferry, I forgot what it's called. The Royal Iris was scrapped and it's rotting on the banks of the River Thames now. Just missed it. Another view of the Three Graces, as you call them. They've got a preserved carriage from the Liverpool Overhead Railway, also known as the Dockers Umbrella, because they used to walk to work down to the docks, sheltered from the bad weather under all the bridges, well, under the line. Whose bright idea was it to demolish it? An old steam locomotive down there. That's on the ground floor. I said, is there a guide? When I asked at reception, he said, no, you just explore yourself. So it's all a bit mixed up apparently.
We're eye to eye with them. Oh, well, we gave them what for. With bullets and bayonets and sometimes anything else that came to hand. We really gave them it. The Germans who weren't dead or captured took off back towards the second line. A few of our lads jumped up to chase them, finished the job. Another machine gun opened up. Never saw those men again. I sat down on the firing platform, lit a fag, checked myself for holes. Sometimes in an attack, men get hit bad and don't even realise it. For 2 days we held the German trench. While the sun shone through the day and the skylarks sang, and the smell of the dead out on the open ground got worse. Then we were relieved. And back behind our lines, an officer gave roll call. Over 50 men in our platoon had gone over the top. But just a handful of us were left to answer our names. And the new men here behind the lines asked me, what's it like out there? And I said, God of the wild by my cloud by Hannah. Ask him what it's like out there.
This is a reproduction of Liverpool's slums. Creaky doors. Oops, sorry. And a bog. Listen.
Oi, clear off, did you see I'm busy?
For Saturday and Sunday, which I've spent in that court, I always shudder at. I'm very sorry to think that. Although we're told the world is getting wiser, the Liverpool courts are getting no better. New laws empower the corporation to clear these dwellings, but their obsession with statistics saps their resolve. Hugh Shilling, 49 years ago.
Liverpool is the first city to pioneer food sanitary practices in the form of purpose-built workers' housing.
Nice old engine, isn't it? Built in 1838. 1838. I should have adjusted the camera, but doesn't matter, does it? I just thought I'd give a little impression of what the museum contains. Yeah, I've got a few pictures of the streets in Victorian times. Must have stunk of oil smoke. It's a moose. One of the dry docks for working on the relatively small ships. All defunct. That's the propeller of the Lusitania over there. trying to find a bloody catch point. Must be one nearby. The idea is to get a taxi to the Ringo style pub called the Empress. I've never been there. See if it's open. Our Lusitania torpedoed 7th of May 1915. Loss of nearly 1,200 lives. Billy Fury Memorial. Poor Billy, only 42 when he died. "40 years ago, this was all derelict. It was featured in Boys from the Black Stuff, George's Last Ride, and they're being repeated on BBC 4. Well, I timed that well, didn't I? I just arrived at Ringo's pub, which is there, the Empress, in a taxi. And the reproduction Rolls Royce tour, which is 50 quid a person, is just pulled up because Ringo was born on this street, Madryn Street, where that silver van is, well, where the red car is. And this is a reproduction Rolls Royce. It's not the original is in America. It got sold for about 200 grand. It's a Phantom 5, and John Addy's painted by a gypsy caravan painter. Lovely that, isn't it? It's a very good, faithful reproduction of John's original. Pity about that lamppost. Very nice. I just said to the taxi driver, that's good timing. That would be good to impress a girl, wouldn't it? Take a bird out in that for a Beatles tour. Right, Ringo's pub, the Empress. It's never open. If it's open, I said I'll have a quick pint, but it's never open. And this is the Peace and Love on Kinmel Street. Peace and Love. When it was his birthday, it was 82 last Thursday. He said, everyone stop what you're doing at noon on my birthday, my 82nd birthday, and say peace and love. I thought, well, yeah, and then what? Looks like it's shut. No lights on. Has this pub closed down, sorry? Do you know if it's not open anymore?
It's open, yeah, it will be open in September.
Really? September? Okay, thank you.
That's why the murals.
Have you seen the John Lennon Rolls Royce replica just pull up?
Yeah, no, it's not the right model.
I said it's not the right model. Is it not a Phantom 5? Yeah, so this is Ringo Street, and the interesting thing is the V for Victory, which is over the doorway, was affixed there after we won World War II. And it said in a fit of, ecstasy after the victory in Europe, they put a V over the doorway, number 10. And it's still there.
The Ed Sullivan Show.
Yeah.
That's when the Beatles became worldwide known.
And so this was post. They were already famous.
Yeah, you can tell them what he's doing. 63 straight mission to the UK.
Yeah.
In November.
Yeah, there's a picture of Ringo and his stepdad. His dad cleared off when Ringo was a young toddler. He said, my dad just had enough of married life and he cleared off and I never saw him again. What a shame. And his mum married again, a council worker called Harry Graves, and I met old Harry in 1992. As Ringo came back to do a concert at Liverpool Empire, July 1992, and I went to see him. And it was filmed for the Disney Channel. And a couple of weeks after, old Harry was there in the Beatles shop. I said, "Oh, hello Harry, is that you, Mr. Graves?" "Hello." I said, "I went to see your Ringo a couple of weeks ago." "That's right." I said, "Could I have a picture and your autograph?" And he said, "To Stephen, from Ringo's dad Harry, God bless." I thought, oh, the lovely old chap. Yeah, and I was just saying to the taxi driver, Ringo sold his estate in Cranley, Surrey, the Ridinghurst estate, for 20 million. And moved to LA for the LA sunshine. I mean, this weather is quite rare for us.
Oh, that is the most amazing. That is beyond a concert. That is
So there we are, Ringo Street. I once got a like on Twitter from Ringo when I sent a picture from Butlins, what I found online. And I thought, wow, he's actually acknowledged something the fans do. It's my taxi. Yes, I'm in the same spot where Sean Lennon was a couple of months ago, and he had a pint of Guinness as well. Yes, John Lennon's old pub when he was an art student. I like these little cubbyholes from early Victorian times. Yes, there's a famous picture of John Lennon with a mate on this very doorstep with the same glass Holdings Beacon Ales, unspoilt, in about 1959. Same tiles on the wall. I know if you're not a Beatles nut, it's not very interesting, but there's also a picture of him and his wife-to-be, Cynthia, sat on that step. They've built this wall since, but he's with a crowd of friends from the art college, and then him and Cynthia sat where them bins are actually. There's a lad in Liverpool called Keith Jones that does these then and now pictures, which are fascinating, and he sort of mingled the pictures together. John and Cynthia in 1959. And then the modern day Ye Crack. Pity they built that. It's all new build, that, isn't it? Nothing there in 1959. So John and his mate stood there, and then John and Cynthia sat there. Well, I'm in the Philharmonic pub, and I just had a word with the landlord at the Ye Crack, and he said, oh, there's a cash point in the pub. Well, there isn't. So the lad behind the bar said there's one down there. Isn't working. The glass collector said there's one down the road, mate. So I went down the road, 2 minutes walk, down a hill, and it's been vandalised. Put my card in, it wouldn't give me any cash. So it returned me card, luckily. You can't get cash anywhere in Liverpool, what's going on? I should have got some money in the town centre, shouldn't I? This is a very ornate pub, I've filmed in here before. Chesterfield leather armchairs. And I just spilt my Guinness and a double Irish whiskey. Yes, there were the ornate bongs with a sticker just applied. I brought some of Ian Hepcat Harley's stickers with me. Nice old pub, this, isn't it? Very ornate and very eccentric. Lots of pubs like this in Liverpool are. Wood and brass and leather seats. All this for a pub and dining rooms. Beautiful, isn't it? Right, I'm going to get a bite to eat now. At this place, 1931 it's called. That's the Art Deco Liverpool Philharmonic, 1930 something. Yes, I'm in the 1931 restaurant, which is very nice. Dates from 1931. I like these old lights, but of course they're modern, aren't they, to look retro. And like I said, I brought some 1931 pennies because I collect old coins. I had some 1931 pennies in my collection. And I've sent this restaurant messages saying this. They might think I'm mad, but I said I've got a few coins 1931. There's loads on eBay. You get loads of half crowns. One seller was selling 8 half crowns dated 1931. I said you can make them into key rings and give them to staff. And they didn't respond. So there's a pretty waitress who's serving me, so I'll see if she's interested in my little prezi for them. They might think I'm mad. I suppose I am. Yes, Philharmonic opposite. Very 1930s that, isn't it? Well, just had a nice meal at the 1931. Very pretty waitress, and I give them my 3 pennies dating from 1931. And I give them a tip. He said, "Oh, thanks very much for the coins. My manager was very impressed." I said, "Oh, good. I thought he might think I'm by me." Nice, isn't it? Nice window display, Triumph Chopper. Well, should I go for the train or have another little wander around Liverpool? There's some lovely buildings. That's the Chinese across the road. It used to be called the Hard Wok. You get it? The Hard Wok Cafe. I'm not sure if it's still called that, we'll see. But this is an old Victorian building. There was all scaffolding around last time, 1927. You see. By appointment. It's now called, it's a bistro, but used to be a baker's. Flying the loaf, beef and bread. Nice old building, isn't it? Flying the loaf. As you brew, so shall you bake. There used to be a back street pub on one of these streets, and the ceiling was full of ties, you know, blokes' ties drawing pinned to the ceiling. And then when I went in again, all the ties had gone. I said, was I imagining things? Or did you have loads of ties dangling from the ceiling years ago? And he said, oh yes, they were full of dust, so we took them all down. Vienna Bakery, Bakers to the Queen, Kirkland Brothers, Scott's Confectioners. So that's another preserved bit of Victoriana. Nice, isn't it? With a motorbike outside. So this is now called the Centerline Canteen, not the Hard Wok Cafe. And that's another ornate building. Yes, at the bottom is Bold Street, which goes back to the town centre. That's got lots of interesting old shops. So I think I'll stay another hour and get the train about 6 o'clock. Pity I'm not getting B&B here. Oh, Rodney Street, yeah, Rodney Street is where there was a photographer from the 1930s and 40s. And his studio is at number 59. Edward, what was he called? Not Chapman. I forgot his bloody name. We'll see. I'll find number 59 and I'll see. I've got a book of his photography. It was sort of landscapes and clouds and portraits. I forgot his name, I'm slightly pissed. This is it. Edward Chambera Hardman Photographers. And like I said, I've got a couple of his books. And this is owned by the National Trust, but it's closed. And it's been closed. It was open in May and June, but they decided to bloody close for the summer. Why? And it's been preserved from the 1930s inside. He died, but him and his wife lived here. And it said the kitchen was full of cereals and jars of stuff, you know, preserved on the shelf, so they've kept it just as he left it. He was a celebrated photographer, you know, he took portraits of the rich and famous and film stars and radio stars of that period, 1920s, 30s, 40s, 50s. And I think he died in the 1970s, aged about 80. I'm not sure, but because I'm into photography, I got a couple of his books. But you know, there's thousands of photographers, isn't there? He was into clouds and cloud formations, but you know, it's something that I'm not really an enthusiast of. I mean, clouds are clouds, aren't they? Nothing mysterious about them. Someone's pinched the numbers. Why? It's a nice 3-story Georgian terrace, isn't it, from the 1700s. Right, well, knock this off now. I should have kept the camera running because this is another elegant Georgian street just round the corner, Mount Street. And this is where Paul McCartney and George Harrison's junior school was, the Liverpool Institute, and it's here. Dating from 1825. Not sure if these are original cobbles. The cathedral there, not as old as you might think. It took about 80 years to complete the build. They kept getting different hold-ups for some reason. The Pilgrim, I wonder if that's a pub with all the ties. I said, where's all your ties gone? We took them down, mate. They were full of dust. Yes, Georgian Liverpool, 1700s.
That works too.
Nice houses, aren't they? 3 stories, running for all flats now. There we are. Paul McCartney and George Harrison's old school, along with Peter Sissons, the newsreader who's died about 5 years ago. He was an old Libolian as well. Libolian, Liverpool Institute, old boy. Liobian, that's it, Liobian. And that's the art college next door where John Lennon was a student. So there we are, elegant Georgian terraces. So I'm going to walk to the bottom, walk down Ball Street, and then decide what I'm doing. Should I go home? It's 6 o'clock or 6:30 train. This is the spot where a picture of John and Cynthia sat on the mate's Ford Popular car bonnet was taken in about 1958. And nothing's changed. The drain pipes are still here. The heavy cast iron fence is still there. But like I said, it's only a big deal because it's to do with the Beatles, isn't it? And yes, I just put one of my stickers up, or should I say Ian McMullen stickers. Blame him. Nothing's doing me. Nothing's doing me. That was a girls' school across the road called the Blackburn School for Girls. Blackburn with an E on the end. And of course this was an old boys' school, nothing but boys. They used to drool at all the girls jumping about in the playground in the 1950s. Yes, an art installation of trunks. Excuse me. It wasn't a residential school, so I'm not sure why these are here. But some of them have got the Beatles' names on. Oh, that's got the photographer's name on. Edward Chambra Hardman. He wasn't an old boy. First class, what's that about? Nice area though, isn't it? Joy and elegance. See, Paul McCartney's name is on the Hofner violin bass shape. What about George? Stuart Sutcliffe. Where's George Harrison? Actually, it doesn't matter, it's a modern art thing, I'm not into modern art. An afterthought. Yes, here we are again outside Ye Crack. And look at this, there's a blue plaque. And another one here. Where John and his mate were stood on that old picture. Right, we're on Slater Street, and this boy, the Jacaranda, was owned in the 1950s by Alan Williams, a little chap who I've met often at the Liverpool Fans Convention at the Adelphi many times. Used to buy him a few vodkas, and he lived to the age of 84. He died about 10 years ago. He ran this bar, and it was frequented by art students because it's within walking distance. Like I just walked from John Lennon's art college, and it said Alan wanted the basement painting with a view to opening up as a music venue for his Caribbean steel band. And he got John Lennon and his mate Stuart Sutcliffe to paint it. And in return he said you can have all the Coca-Cola you can drink. And it said John and Paul and the early Beatles, just as they've been formed, they were the Quarrymen, then they called themselves the Silver Beatles when George Harrison joined them. And they used to perform here. And Alan got him a few jobs painting the ladies' toilets and singing a few skiffle numbers to get customers in before they made the big time. So this place, still called the Jacaranda, has got a place in the Beatles' history. Should I go and have a pint in it? I've no money left. Like I said, I still haven't found a bloody cash point. I'll ask if I can pay on my card.
Okay, who's next? Yes.
Bob, would you do one of your famous cavern introductions for
us? Okay, here goes, folks. Hi there, all you Cape Dwellers. This is Bob Waller saying, welcome to the best of sellers. We got the hi-fi high and the lights down low, so here we go with the Alan Williams Show.
And on that note, I think it's probably the last time that Bob Wooler and Harry Seacombe except for the 20th of October. We would love you to come on the 5th of October back to Liverpool. It's virtually going to cost you nothing for the show, and it's possibly the last ever show that we'll do ever this year.
Right. Well, Alan, we haven't quite finished because I saw some hands go up here.
The hands will go up all bloody nice.
Well,
I just asked the lady at the bar, I said, can I take some pictures of Stuart Sutcliffe and John Lennon's murals, please? They've been touched up over the years, but they're based on the originals from 1959. So John Lennon and his mate Stuart Sutcliffe painted these. These are some pictures in the main bar, but I've got better pictures of the period John Lennon was here as a young lad. I've got better pictures at home that I could supply him with, you know, from the art student days. Jacaranda. Poor old Alan. His daughter was at the Adelphi one year. She said, that isn't vodka for me, Dad, is it? I said, yeah, I buy him a bottle every year. She said, well, please don't. I said, well, he survived till into his 80s on vodka, so it's not doing him any harm. So I think I gave it to some Russian lads. There's a lot of Russians come for the Beatles do at the Adelphi every year. They come from all over the world. Yeah, Concert Street. Me and my mate Kevin came here till about 3 AM. We come out of the Adelphi on Sunday night after the Beatles convention, and it was all over with. And I said, I can hear some thumping music, and we found this place by following the music. And they were serving on a Sunday night. There's a video up, I think, on one of my channels of me and Kevin pissed at about 2 a.m. on a Sunday night. 1869 Holmes Buildings, can you read that? So yet more converted warehouses. So we were going to call it a night, and it was still going on at 3 a.m. I do. Yeah, Liverpool. It's piss artist paradise. Yes, we're nearly back at Lime Street Station. Empire Theatre there. The second Empire Theatre after the first one was demolished. Not sure why, either a fire or war damage. That's the Northwestern Hotel, which looks remarkably like the Dakota building in New York where John decided to call home for the last 15 years of his life. Coincidence, or did it remind him of this Northwestern Hotel? Anyway, it's 6:15, so I'll head for home. I'll be home about 9, I reckon. St. George's Hall again, all cleaned up. I like these lights. These lights have been here for a century. Uncorroded, unvandalised. I bet Drew Pritchard would pay £2 each for these. Lovely ornate castings.